ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I am delighted to be here and thank the CII for giving me an opportunity to share my thoughts with you. It is well understood that to deliver good governance, the government has to be fair, transparent, accountable, efficient, equitable, inclusive, and follow the rule of law. This is only possible if the government is founded in righteousness. Corruption, on the other hand, is one of the major reasons for poor governance. Corruption hampers the ability of the governments to function effectively. From an economic perspective, corruption distorts competitive markets. From a social perspective, it weakens institutions, undermines the rule of law, and public trust in politicians, public servants, and business leaders. From a development point of view, it negates development efforts. It distorts our decision-making and priorities. The projects are selected on extraneous considerations and on grounds like what is in it for me rather than what is in public interest. There is leakage of government funds, and they do not reach the intended interested beneficiaries. The poor are the worst affected. When funds for building schools or hospitals are siphoned off, we deprive our children of education and the sick medical care. In National Rural Health Mission in UP, rupees 10,000 crores meant for upgradation of and improvement of hospitals were embezzled by public servants of UP. It increases transaction costs, creates uncertainty, and hurdles for smooth business. The World Economic Forum has estimated that every year corruption adds as much as 10% to the total cost of global business. It increases the cost of public procurement contracts by up to 25% in developing countries. It has also estimated 5% of total GDP is lost to corruption. Therefore, it is essential to understand the various forms in which corruption manifests. Corruption broadly takes two forms: petty and grand corruption. Petty corruption, which can also be termed as facilitation payment, mainly occurs when citizens pay bribe to obtain public services. Whenever you go to a government office, you may have encountered this kind of corruption. People pay bribes because there may be delays, there may be uncertainty, and you want some service to be rendered fast, and you are told that we will put objections. So this is something that really troubles the system. It involves the lower levels of bureaucracy and is extortionist in nature. Demanding bribes for issue of ration card or inclusion in the beneficiary list of rural development schemes or issue of passport or driving license or bribing the police would fall under this category. This has the most debilitating and direct effect on a large section of our society. Citizen has to pay bribes to obtain the basic requirements provided by the state, which is rightly due to them. The poorest of them get left out because of their inability to pay bribes. Petty corruption or facilitation payment is rampant in the Indian system of public service. There is another problem in India, that is the inadequacy of services. Like, if you want to get your child admitted into a school, there are not enough of good quality schools. So you are prepared to pay a bribe to get him admitted to a good school. Or suppose you are poor and you want to get your mother or father admitted into a hospital, then you cannot get him an admission into a bed. You can't get him a general bed even. Then you are prepared to pay 50 rupees or 100 rupees. These are the kind of problems that a common man faces. The liberal democracies of the West have largely been able to overcome this form of corruption. According to a report by bribery published by Trace International in 2009, 51% of the bribes demanded were for timely delivery of service to which the individual was already entitled. The other form of corruption is called grand corruption, which involves grant of undue favors to business entities by higher levels in the government. This may be in the form of favors in award of large contracts, licenses and approvals, or allocation of natural resources. Some of the examples of collusive corruption between bribe giver and the corrupt public servant. You would all be knowing awarding of contracts through public works. One of the most talked about example recently is the award of public contracts in Commonwealth Games. Then procurement of goods and service. In defense contract, we have been reading about the Augusta Westland chopper deal. Then in the other form is recruitment of employees. JBT recruitment scandal in Haryana, where the former Chief Minister of Haryana is behind bars. Then there are cases of evasion of taxes. Then there are substandard projects. You build roads, but they are not up to specifications. Then there are cases of adulteration of foods and drugs. The 2G spectrum, coal-back block allocation, award of contracts in Commonwealth Games are some recent examples. While incidents of grand corruption get highlighted prominently in the media, petty corruption has come to be accepted as a way of life, but the real anger and frustration of the public is, to a very large extent, on the account of the pervasive petty corruption. Corruption in government mainly occurs due to the misuse of discretion enjoyed by the public authorities, cumbersome, non-transparent, and ambiguous procedures, over-regulation, and excessive state control. Most of you are aware of the license Raj, and at that time, the very fact that there was licensing led to a lot of corruption. Dismantling of licensing itself helped, and those of you who would be aware, there used to be a department called Directorate General of Technical Development. When I was a young officer, I also had the occasion to visit, and they determined how much to produce and which machinery to buy. So those kind of things, when you do away, then you improve the whole system. Lack of citizen-oriented and responsive approach by the officials aggravates the problem. The Commission has been advocating simplification of rules and a more open, transparent, and accountable governance system. Discretion should be reduced to the bare minimum and only where absolutely essential. We should encourage free and fair competition. The fight against corruption calls for twin-pronged approach of preventive as well as punitive action. To provide a credible deterrence against corruption, it is necessary that the corrupt are promptly punished, howsoever high and mighty they may be. To achieve this, we need an independent, well-trained professional investigating agency and an efficient and honest criminal justice system. Delays in the judicial process is a serious challenge in fighting corruption, as courts are overburdened with cases and trials take many years. As a result, the guilty continue to enjoy the fruits of corruption while the innocent suffer. There are more than 6,600 cases of corruption pertaining to CBI which are under trial. About 1,500 are under trial for more than 10 years. Prevention is a more effective and efficient means of combating corruption. It involves assessing the risk of corruption in an organization, system, or processes, and recommending suitable controls to mitigate these risks. It is also very encouraging that now people from diverse walks of life are entering into politics. They are coming from business, they are coming from defense forces, they are coming from various professional classes. The enactment of the Lokpal and the Lokayukt Act has created a mechanism for dealing with complaints of corruption against the senior-most political functionaries. One of the most significant developments in the recent past has been that the rich and the powerful have been sent to jail for their misdeeds. Union cabinet ministers, I need not name them, you would all be aware of them, chief ministers, top civil servants, industrialists, members of parliament have not been immune from prosecution. Many chief ministers have lost their jobs. The impression that if you are rich, powerful, well-connected, you can get away with anything in India holds no longer true. This is causing understandable turmoil and at times disillusionment with the state of affairs in the country amongst those affected by this change. My own view is that what we are witnessing today is only a consequence of the deepening of democracy, spread of education, TV, IT, media, rise of civil rights movements, liberalization, opening up of our economy, and rapid economic growth of the last 2 decades. We are moving, in my view, towards a rule-based democracy. The direction is unmistakable. This may be uncomfortable to entrenched interests, but is something to be welcomed. In my view, a rule-based democracy is best positioned to fight corruption and deliver good governance. Irrespective of who forms the government after elections, the demand for good governance and corruption-free India will only gather momentum. And for this reason, I remain optimistic about the India story. Thank you.